If your kid is terrified of shots, they're in good company. Researchers estimate that over 60% of school-aged kids and about half of teens struggle with needle anxiety. So why are kids so prone to developing needle fears in the first place? So the first and most obvious factor is that shots hurt. The brain is designed to hang on really tightly to threat information. And even though the pain of a shot may be relatively small in the grand scheme of pain, it's still pain, and it's very easy for kids' brains to categorize it as evidence of a threat. Some psychologists believe that needle anxiety is almost always caused by poor pain management, and that maybe needle phobias wouldn't be a thing if we did a better job of addressing the pain. I definitely agree that pain is a big part of it, but I think needle fears would probably still exist even if all shots were painless. I feel like there's just an evolutionary spidey sense that doesn't like it when there's a sharp pointy thing headed towards us. Kind of like how we don't like it if a roach crawls over our hand, even though the roach isn't going to cause us any pain. But either way, once the brain says that needles are a threat, we're going to get a fight, flight, or freeze response the next time a needle shows up. And the expectation for how horrible that needle is going to be will often become exaggerated, because the brain's way of responding to threats is to do whatever it takes to get you to avoid that threat, including feeding you whatever worst-case scenarios it can cook up. Now, when this response shows up for adults, we often have some internal tools that we can lean on at least some of the time. We can look into the future using past experience as a guide and make more realistic predictions about what's going to happen. Like, we can remind ourselves that we've gotten shots dozens of times and we've always been able to handle them. Or we can reason with ourselves about why the shot is important. Like, I know I need this blood draw because I've been really tired lately and I might have an iron deficiency, so it's worth it to me to deal with the pain of the needle. It doesn't always work for adults. There are quite a few adults with needle phobias as well, but it's there as an option. Developmentally, kids are still working on building those abstract skills in the first place, and it's harder for them to access that kind of internal scaffolding at all. And so they're less likely to have tools to lean on when they go into fight, flight, or freeze mode, and they're more likely to actually try to flee the needle, or in some cases to fight. And so kids are more likely to get restrained, and some restraint experiences end up feeling really negative and like a profound loss of control. For example, many healthcare professionals agree that it's harmful for kids to be held down on their backs because it's such a vulnerable position. And if that happens, that experience can get layered onto their pre-existing sense of threat, and it can make the next shot feel even scarier. Kids also just don't have a lot of control over their healthcare experiences, period. And that adds this element of unpredictability that can also amp up the threat response. Another thing that makes needle fears so sticky is that most kids don't get a lot of positive exposure experiences. When a kid with needle fears gets a routine shot, the usual way things go is that getting the shot is kind of overwhelming for both the kids and their parents. And since the next shot is a ways away, the parents kind of say, "Whew, glad we don't have to deal with that again for a while." And then there's no chance to practice. And so when the next shot comes around, it's often the same deal. That's not to say that we should be giving kids unnecessary needle procedures, because we shouldn't. But there are lots of ways to create friendly little exposures to the idea of needles, and we often don't take advantage of that. So it makes sense that so many kids are scared of needles, and knowing why kids are prone to needle fears gives us some points of entry for how we can make things better, right? If pain is a big part of why needle fears develop, then we definitely need to think about and plan for pain management. If we know that brains hold on to threat information and that kids' brains learn that a shot is a very dangerous thing, then we need to do things with shots through play and media that take some of that danger away. And if we know that loss of control and limited internal scaffolding is a part of the struggle for kids, that tells us that it's important to give kids control where we can, make coping plans with our kids, and choose methods of helping kids hold still that feel less vulnerable to them than being on their backs. For more information on ways to help a kid with needle fears, feel free to check out my other videos or visit the cool folks over at the Meg Foundation.